I'm Carol Ann Riddell, and welcome to Book It with CA. There is not much I enjoy more than a great summer read. So this month, we are all about books you might want to throw in your beach bag. We kick things off with two authors who both happen to be from Australia. A new thriller by Sally Hepworth and a romantic comedy from Georgia Clark. We start with Sally and her novel, The Younger Wife. Sally, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Your latest book is The Younger Wife. The title alone totally got my attention. It's a thriller, so I don't want to give away the ending, but tell us how the plot unfolds.
Well, it's called The Younger Wife, but it's actually about a family, the Aston family, who is made up of Stephen Aston, who is the patriarch, as it were. He's in his 60s. He is a heart surgeon at the top of his game. His wife, Pam, who is the mother of his two adult daughters, and then his adult daughters, Tully and Rachel. And the book really kicks off when Stephen announces to his daughters that he's marrying a woman who is younger than they are, which is controversial enough without taking into the fact that he's still married to their mother, who is in a residential care facility with dementia, and he needs to divorce her in order to make that wedding happen. So the book kicks off with the wedding, and it's told by an unknown wedding guest, an unknown narrator. And we see the couple marry and then disappear off into the sacristy to sign the paperwork. We then hear a scream and the wedding celebrant runs back in and her white pantsuit is covered in blood.
Yeah.
From there, it's kind of, we go backwards a year in time and we find out all the events that led up to that wedding, who was injured, who did it, and what actually unfolded.
Let's talk about the two sisters, the two adult daughters in the book, Tully and Rachel. One of them is a kleptomaniac mom. The other is this gorgeous professional baker who kind of seems to be eating her feelings in the book.
Yeah.
How would you describe those two sisters?
Well, they're very different, which is something that I have experienced with a lot of sisters. They tend to be polar opposites. Tully, the kleptomaniac, is quite neurotic, quite anxious, quite highly strung. Her sister Rachel is kind of the more chill sister, and yeah, as you say, she is eating her feelings a little bit. Both of them are looking for coping mechanisms for life, like we all are, and some of the coping mechanisms that they have found are not serving them.
It would have been very easy to make the younger wife the villain.
Yeah.
Because that is the stereotype that we're all sort of used to. But you really did choose a different path. What was behind that?
Well, it really was my hatred of cliches. And I think all of my books, I always talk about family dysfunctionality as being my genre, as it were, which means that I have endless material.
Right, that's true. It's all around you.
It's everywhere. But the other part of it is really undoing cliches. In my previous books, for example, The Mother-in-Law, I wanted to kind of undo this notion of all mothers-in-law being evil, which is something that is the old trope. And with this book, it was undoing the idea that the younger wife necessarily is a gold digger with daddy issues, or even without undoing that, giving more agency to the older husband and looking at his part in it. So yeah, that's definitely the exploration that I want to do when I get started with any book.
You've been described as one of the top domestic suspense authors. What in your mind is domestic suspense? How would you define it? And who do you think the audience is?
Gosh, I always, with genre, I find that so tricky. In fact, I just pick a book and I write it. And then I look at where it's been shelved in the bookstore. And I was so excited recently to discover that my books were shelved in crime. And I thought, wow, I wear a lot of pink and I smile a lot. I don't feel like I should be in crime. I need to get more black clothes.
Well, welcome to New York.
Yes.
It's the uniform.
I'm going to have to do some shopping. But I think what it is, I mean, the domestic piece, of course, is that this is everyone. Everyone has this domestic life. And so automatically this could be me. I think that will connect a reader to any book if they can see themselves in it. And the suspense part, of course, I mean, who doesn't love suspense? And one thing that readers say to me, which is just the biggest compliment is, I couldn't put your book down. I just wanted to keep turning the pages. And that's suspense, isn't it? You know,
Yes.
because you need an answer. And so I guess to put those two things together, domestic suspense, it's just a no-brainer, isn't it? And that's probably the best description I can find.
So you've written 7 books and you have 3 kids. How does that work for you?
Well, I'm very lucky. My husband is the stay-at-home parent, or it has been for the last couple of years. Of course, there's all of the hectic stuff that goes along with having the kids, especially over the last 2 years in Australia where the kids have been home learning and we've all been in the house together.
I hear you. I feel your pain.
Which has been, you know, both good and bad. So many comedic moments in that.
Yes.
But I love it. And if I didn't have those moments of my kids busting in to, you know, ask me for a treat, or, you know, having to write while watching a child's sporting game, I don't know that I'd be writing the books that I do write, because they're so woven through with those kind of hectic moments.
Oh, that's a really interesting point. What is next for you, Sally?
Well, I've just turned in my next year's book, which is called The Soulmate. So I hope the future is lots more books about family dysfunctionality.
Well, as you said, there's plenty of material.
A lifetime's worth, I guess.
Yes. Thank you so much for all this time. I so enjoyed chatting with you and I loved the book.
Thank you so much, and thanks for this lovely interview.
Now to Georgia Clark. Her new romantic comedy called Island Time digs into queer romance and family dynamics, all set on a tropical island. Georgia, thank you so much for having us over today.
Oh, my pleasure.
And with a new baby, no less, I found it challenging to take a shower, so here you are having a TV camera in.
Oh, well, she's so cute. She makes looking after her fairly easy, I would
She
say.
is definitely cute. Yeah. So your newest book is Island Time. Tell us a little bit about the plot and how it unfolds.
Sure. Island Time is about 2 families, one American, one Australian, who have nothing in common except for the fact their daughters are married. The 2 families are taking what they think is going to be a 3-day trip to a remote tropical island off the coast of my home country of Australia, when a nearby volcano explodes, wiping out travel in the whole area, and their 3-day trip ends up stranding them there all together for 6 weeks.
With lots of sort of love interest percolating.
That's right. It's a queer rom-com, it's family drama, it dives into ambition and motherhood, lots of secrets. Everyone comes to the island, which is called Monday, with an idea of how their life is going to go, and by the end of it, everyone's plan has changed.
The choice of setting is interesting because it's a fictional island, but it is actually modeled after a real island. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. I set it in an area of Australia that I know very well because I wrote it during the pandemic, and you know, the question I asked myself was, where do I want to be? Where do I want to go? And the answer was Australia, the place I couldn't go because I live here in New York. So I modeled it off a part of the world where my grandparents lived and where I visited them as a child, where my mother lives now. And it's modeled off an island called Gurry, or Fraser Island, and which is in a beautiful tropical part of Queensland, a northern state in Australia.
And you weave a lot of detail about Indigenous culture into the book, which I was interesting. What was behind that?
Well, I knew if I wanted to tell a story about the land, which it ultimately was because it was all taking place on this singular small island, that I had to include the Indigenous perspective. The land belongs to Indigenous people of Australia. It was stolen from them in the 1700s during colonisation, and getting the land back is an ongoing issue for Indigenous Australians and is, you know, part of the national conversation, has been for decades. And so I had the land under, in my book, exclusive native title for the Butchulla people, who were the tribe that would have lived there thousands of years ago.
You say in the acknowledgements of your book that while the pandemic took a lot from you, as you mentioned, you couldn't go to Australia, it also gave you clarity that you want to write queer love stories.
Yes.
How so?
I think that all of us were asking hard questions of ourselves during the pandemic. Where do I want to be? Am I really doing what I want to do? You know, and if we weren't doing what we really wanted to do, what was that? What changes could we make in our life? And for me, what became really clear when I started to ask myself those questions in sort of, March, April 2020, was that queer love stories were incredibly important to me. They were the stories that I seek out as a reader, as a watcher. They're the stories that I respond to. Seeing myself represented in culture, in fiction, is incredibly validating, and it's a way of claiming cultural territory. So when I was starting to think about, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to do with my art? I really realized that telling love stories between queer people was not just an interesting idea, but a vital one, and one that I was really committed to. I have had sort of told queer stories in the past in my other books, but I've never put them front and center. And so Island Time does that, and the books I write in the future will do that as well.
There was a point in the book that I found really interesting, and it was when you have one of your characters talking on the phone, because she's a volunteer on like a hotline. And she's talking to a teenager who's struggling with something, and she says in that conversation, when you're queer, you get to create a love story that's never been written before. And I don't know, I liked that line a lot, and I just wanted to ask you, what did you mean exactly by that?
Oh, I know the scene that you're talking about. I loved writing that scene. I really wanted to have a moment where the character was making a declarative statement about queer life and what's wonderful about it, because what's hard about queer life is well documented, and the struggles of being queer now and in the past, I think we're well aware of. And celebrating queer joy and queer love is so important. And I wanted to have my character express the truism, which is when you fall in love with someone who is queer, and of course that's a huge umbrella term, and that encompasses a lot of different people and different couplings and more than two people, that you really are off script in so many ways. Like Boy Meets Girl is a standard script, and in so many ways that, and I have dated men many years ago, and it did kind of feel more formulaic, like what I do, what they do. And
what those expectations are.
Yeah, and when I fell in love with my wife and we started dating, what was so wonderful about it was there was no set expectations of who does what and when. And that continues through to our marriage and raising a child together. There's no clear path of like, well, Dad does this, Mum does this, because we're both mum and we're figuring it out in this wonderful way. And it's really exhilarating and exciting, and you really do get to sort of keep reinventing yourself and your relationship.
What would you hope that people take away from your book?
I never really have an agenda of what I want people to sort of experience, because art is such a personal experience and reading is such a personal experience. But I am excited to introduce Australia to my American readers, and especially the Indigenous component of the book as well, and the struggles and issues around land and land rights, which is an ongoing conversation in Australia and a really important one. So I'm really excited for people to discover more of that and to enjoy a beautiful, sexy, queer love story.
Georgia, thank you so much for all this time. I really enjoyed chatting with you and the book.
Oh, me too. Thanks so much for coming over.
Sometimes the best suggestions for what to read come from your friends, especially when there's a little champagne involved. So we gathered a few of ours, including Book It's Linda Stacy, to talk about what we're diving into this summer. Hey everybody, I'm so glad we're doing this.
Hi.
So Tina, Beth, Linda, and I all know each other, and Linda brought a new friend to our play date. Damien is with us. Thank you. So before we start talking books, cheers, people.
Cheers.
Cheers, cheers, cheers. Can't totally reach, but there you go. Okay. Okay, so we're talking about The Golden Couple first, which I'm going to say full disclosure that I have interviewed Sarah Pekkanen and Greer Hendricks before and read their previous books. They were fun. The books were fun. So I was probably predisposed to like it. And I did. It's kind of about this couple who's like a golden couple, Matthew and Marissa, and they end up in therapy because Marissa has been unfaithful. And they go to this very unconventional therapist her methods are somewhat questionable. But then the story takes a lot of turns from there. I mean, it really, I don't want to give too much away, but the three of them end up on this sort of strange trajectory.
It was the first time I read them, and I loved the book.
I mean, I liked it. I didn't love it more than anything. I guess it's a perfect summer read, but I didn't love it. I mean, I liked it. It was okay. It was okay.
What didn't you love?
I knew the ending before. Oh, I did.
You mean you weren't surprised at all?
No.
I was. Tina Beth, what about you?
I was surprised, and I did the audio version. I actually didn't read it, so I was listening to it on my commute, coming in and coming out. So the characters for me each have a voice, and I can hear them, and it could force me to see them. And then I really enjoyed it so much that I was saying earlier that I thought it could be a movie.
Yeah.
Because it was just that interesting to me, and I was like,
It would be a perfect movie.
I think so too.
And of course, I loved Avery, the weirdo therapist, because she's like all up in everybody's business, like doing private detective on them.
Oh yeah, like hiding outside their
Hiding
house.
cameras in people's rooms. I mean,
I
that was a
know.
little
Yeah,
bit,
that's a little much.
stretch.
But she does promise results.
Yes,
yeah,
she
and
does.
she gets them.
That's right, and she got them.
But how great! 10 steps
I
to
know.
follow in therapy, and then you're done. I mean,
then
I've
you're
been in
fixed.
for years. I had horrible experiences, so 10 steps is sort of cool. It's like
That's true. Give me 10 steps, I'm out. Good. Fine.
You know what? I did think the therapy thing, I'd be curious to hear what you think, Linda. I thought therapy is an interesting tool, though, to move the plot along because they're revealing stuff about themselves just in the course of the dialogue that you might not otherwise get at the beginning of a book.
You're absolutely right, because one of my conundrums when I started becoming a novelist, the difference between what I do for a living, which is a journalist, especially a tabloid journalist in New York City, is like the Pope could call me and tell me, I just did such and such, and I'll say, hurry up, I've got 500 words in 10 minutes. Yeah. When you're a novelist, you have to drag out every single thing, and then you have to find a vehicle.
Yes.
That's not expository, so people aren't just sitting there going, and then when I was 10 years old, and she found a really good vehicle in The Shrink.
Yes.
To do that. It was brilliant.
one of the things that I thought was interesting is, and I know I'm outnumbered here, but I definitely thought it was written. You can tell it was written by a woman.
No, what? Two women actually. Wow.
women,
But
yes.
why?
Oh, yeah. Why?
It was that whole obsession with the couch, where they had sex. I couldn't understand it. A guy would not respond to something like that at all. That, the woman, she was obsessed with the couch. She had to replace the couch because that's where she had had sex and cheated on her husband with.
That's right.
And
That's right.
when they asked him about his prior experiences, he said, "Oh yeah, I did it 3 times." To him, it was a number that he did it 3
Yes.
times with this one woman, and
That's true. But
right.
that of course did not occur to me.
And besides, a man, the first thing a man would want to know is he better looking than me? What kind of body does he have? And does he make more money? So, I mean, you can tell that there wasn't that male perspective there.
Discussion. So we also all said that we would come with a recommendation, and this is the one that I just finished. It's called The School for Good Mothers. Wow, gotta say, this one really stuck with me. It was, okay, I'm just gonna say that this goes against a little bit of what I said I wanted before, which is like a fun beach read. But wow, this book, it can be dark. So I'm just gonna give you a little bit of what the plot is. So there's this woman in the book, and her name is Frida, and she's got a baby. Her husband has just recently left her for another woman. She's really struggling with being a single parent.
It's the story of my life.
Sounds very happy so far.
She is completely sleep deprived. I mean, her kid's a toddler, so it's a toddler, that's hard. So she makes this one very bad decision. She calls it her, very bad day, and she leaves her child alone for a couple of hours. And she gets reported. She ends up having to report back to the authorities. And this is where it really takes a creepy turn. She's sent to an experimental state-run facility where they try to re-educate bad mothers. And boy, what they do there, and it's all in the hope of one day being reunited with her child, but there's no guarantee. And what she lives through during this year, and I will just say that there are like robot children involved. It is really something.
There's robot children.
I know. Well, you have a thing about the robot children. But anyway, I have to tell you, though, I have not stopped thinking about this book.
Wow.
All right, so who wants to go next?
I'll go next. So I picked an oldie but a goodie. Wake Me Up When It's Funny, How to Break into Show Business and Stay There. This book was written by Gary Marshall. who was an idol of mine, who has since passed away. I think he passed away like 3 or 4 years ago. But what's nice about this book, and I think makes it a good summer read, is if you want a career in media, this isn't a guidebook for that, but he has a lot of really fun antidotes that if you read between the lines, you're like, oh, that's actually a good idea. That's a good way to get me from point A to B. And he's a kid who grew up sickly in the Bronx, who ends up being a prolific producer, director,
gosh, yeah.
Hollywood great.
Truly one
all
of the
time.
greats, you're right.
Yeah, so it's one of those reads that I think if you're up and coming in the business and you want just to see how to get from point A to B, or if you're in the business and you just need a little reminder of why you're in it and why you enjoy it, then I think this is a book to read.
Is it funny?
It is funny. It's just funny and fun. And it just gives you an appreciation for who he is and the work that he did. I mean, he had Mork and Mindy, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley all on at the same time. Who does that now and have that type of success in television?
So let me ask you a question, though. You said that it was a good primer for people who are starting to in the business. But with everything that's changed now, is that still valid?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because a lot of the points that he's talking about could be applied to today, like pivoting, for instance. Like if you have your eyes on the prize and you're having these blinders on and you don't want to pivot, he pivoted a lot. And so if you read that and you see how he pivoted, then you can apply that to your own career. But sometimes people don't do that. So even though we have social media now and Instagram and all these different ways to put ourselves out there with marketing, there's fundamental things that you should be doing that if you read this, it reminds you to go back and do that. And pivoting is one of them.
Damien, what'd you read?
I've read Allie's Well That Ends Well, Tales of Desperation and a Little Inspiration.
Oh, it's Allie's Well.
Yeah, Allie's Well.
People love that book.
Oh my God. My neighbors must think I'm crazy. I was reading this 1 o'clock in the morning and I let out howls in my bedroom like, she's absolutely.
Crazy or something.
No, she's crazy. And I think that sometimes writers write to either show what they know about something or they write to show off. She writes because she really wants you to love her. She wants to entertain you. I can't speak, and it was about COVID too, which is sort of strange.
Always a million
The
ways.
arc of the story.
There is no arc. They're just stories. I mean, they're just stories that, the arc is just that she made it through COVID and things that she went through with her girlfriends and her family. And in the end, her little inspiration were the tidbits of information she gave to her daughter who's heading off to college. But I just have to say, this is one of the funniest things. I'm trying to find it now. Oh, when she was talking about going through COVID, she said thought maybe now's a good time to start writing. And she said, I tried to write, but ended up Googling at-home remedies to tighten neck flesh. I mean, it is, who says things like that? I mean, she is so.
It's never a bad time to Google up how to tighten neck flesh.
That is funny.
It's brilliant. But anyhow, it's brilliant, and she's brilliant, and I just love her to death. It was really
wow.
a great summer read that you can probably finish in a day on the beach.
All right, I'm in.
I'm in.
Okay, miss.
Okay, so I picked up Capote's Women, and the subtitle of the book is actually about the same length as the book. It's called The True Story of Love, Betrayal, and a Swan Song for an Error. And it's about these women, it's about Truman Capote, but it's about these women that in this era, in the 60s, 70s, social beings were the most important thing. You wanted to reach people wanted to reach this social strata. And these women, like Babe Paley and Gloria Guinness and
Pamela
Harriman
Yeah.
and Marella Agnelli, they were the epitome of the social elite. And they were all gorgeous. And they were all incredibly stylish. And they were all smitten with Truman, and Truman was smitten with them, Truman Capote. So he was writing this book, which he never completed, called Answered Prayers, but it was excerpted, the 3 chapters he wrote in Esquire. And he betrayed every one of these women so horribly. Like, they felt so confident with him and so close to him that they told him the most intimate, terrible secrets about the bad sex that they had with their husbands, terrible things. was all in the book. And so they all woke up one morning. They knew Esquire had come out, and they had their servants run down to get the edition, and they almost died.
I read the book because Linda told me to, and that I work for her. So, but what's funny about that, because I thought, did he do this because like he feels like he was the court jester all these years and he's resentful of that? Or did he really think that they just wouldn't know it was them?
Maybe he was such a writer that everything was just fodder. And there weren't really humans
If he had
involved.
done that 10-step program with Avery,
It all goes back to Avery.
Would I recommend it? Yeah, I would. I would recommend it.
It's pretty juicy.
Yeah.
All right, guys, this was so fun. One last toast to us and to our summer beach reads.
cheers.
All right, gotcha. That is our show for today. Thanks so much for joining us. A quick reminder to check us out on Facebook and Instagram. We would love to hear from you. I'm Carol Ann Riddell. See you next time on Book It with CA.